This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop.
Got it.
Stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
It's Free for All Friday, my friends. Free for All Friday here on the program, and I want to say welcome to it. A lot to talk about today, obviously, because each time this happens, and not to give credence to necessarily to the political tone of the president, but it has become all too routine. Mass shootings have become all too routine. But, Mr. President, so have the responses to them. Predictable from you and predictable from others. So maybe it's time to do something different in the conversation. Maybe it's time to explore deeper, what it is we do here. Because it's yet another unspeakable act of horrible violence and horror playing out on an American school campus. This time the slaughter comes amid the tranquil rolling hills of West Central Oregon and the quiet beauty of Umpqua Community College. It's just a picturesque setting that will forever be stained with the blood of murdered students and haunted by the usual questions of why does this happen? The Umpqua River, the North Umpqua to be more specific, is world famous for steelhead and salmon, for fishing guides. It's a beautiful place. The talking heads will chatter and regurgitate the same old and now familiar lines of active shooters and carnage and students running for their lives and a community in shock. And how did we ever get here? How did human life become so worthless to so many that the wanton destruction of other people's lives means so little? I think in large part you have to take a look at the destruction of the American family over the past few decades, which began in earnest, I think, in about 1965. The first truly notable public mass shooting came in 1966. Charles Whitman climbed to the top of the University of Texas clock tower and began killing people at random. When it was over, 16 people were dead and another 32 were wounded. A scene from a war zone had come to an American university. Other mass killings have grabbed the nation's attention from time to time. You remember some of them, if not all. The McDonald's massacre at San Ysidro, California in July of 1984. I remember being in my car and hearing about that one thinking, how bizarre. Still the way I think when I see him today. In San Ysidro there, one of the busiest border crossings in the world, 21 died, 19 shot and injured. Then came Luby's Cafeteria in Killeen, Texas. 23 shot and killed, 27 more gunned down. I could list others, but you've heard them all too. Then, of course, in 1999, it all changed when Columbine High School in Colorado became the target of two deranged students. Bent on retaliation and vengeance, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold opened fire on their classmates, killing 12, injuring 21 more. Ever since that day, it seems the schools have become ever more free game for psychos to attack. In Blacksburg, Virginia, in 2007, Seng Hui Choi, a senior at Virginia Tech University, shot and killed 32 people, wounded 17. In Newtown, Connecticut, in December of 2012, 20 elementary kids and 6 teachers Murdered with no reason and no regard. The mass killing in Oregon occurred once again in a strict specified gun-free zone. In fact, so gun-free, the security guards were not even permitted to carry firearms. Umpqua Community College is in a remote location, and students, having been rendered legally defenseless, were in effect sitting ducks for the maniac. It took law enforcement officials, some say, up to 20 minutes to arrive on scene. 20 minutes. And by the time they arrived, there were already numerous fatalities and injuries. The question I have today is, what's wrong with us? I believe these tragedies are anchored in policies that devalue human life. Violent movies and music and video games all contribute to this mindset, in my estimation. Abortion and assisted suicide contribute as well, but to me, it really all comes back to the destruction of that family unit, the core. You see, when I grew up, I was taught a very healthy respect for guns from my father. My mother echoed those same sentiments about guns whenever he wasn't around. Guns were not toys. Guns were not to be played with. Guns were to be taken very seriously for the damage they could do if not handled properly. As kids, we played war, cops and robbers, and cowboys and Indians. Those things, by the way, didn't raise the propensity for me to stick up banks or, well, frankly, kill Native Americans. And I certainly didn't wander into my school and start shooting my classmates randomly because somebody had looked at me sideways or a girl wouldn't go out with me. You see, all of my make-believe games were well-grounded in my home. My parents taught me right and wrong, and consequences, and how to behave, and what the word naughty actually meant. Now I'm left to wonder with the rest of us how this happened in Oregon. And now I'm learning that this 26-year-old killer was also asking the kids their religion before he gunned them down. I have very mixed feelings about this, to say the least. I'm a strong proponent of the Second Amendment. But I also have compassion in my heart because that's something else I learned at home, and empathy. And you cannot help but become emotionally tied to such an event. You cannot help but feel for these people if you have a heart at all. And you wonder, what can we do? After the break, we'll take your calls. 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. What are your answers? What do we do here? What can we do that would be different, that could change the outcome of some of these horrible, tragic events? It's 14 after on a free-for-all Friday. The phone number again, 888-900-9966. This hour brought to you in part by Mesa. Good health, good business, and great schools. It's the Steve Gruber Show.
Genuine Michigan common sense on display every day.
First thing I remember was asking Papa why. Oh, there were many things I didn't know.
All right, coming up on the program today, to start the second hour here, we'll have David Jocks here. He is the publisher of the newspaper in Roseburg, Oregon. He was on the scene there yesterday and has, just a terrific connection to this community. He knows the people. He knows the school that's been there since, I think, 1964, and they started in they rented rooms from different places before they had their own buildings. David Jocks will be here. Also with us today will be Rick Ector, National Rifle Association credentialed firearms trainer. He's the person who heads the Legally Armed in Detroit. legally armed in Detroit. And because the first thing that happens, of course, is the president comes out. You know, and in all honesty, I have to empathize with the president. No, easy there. You hear me out. You hear me out before you say something. Can you imagine being the person to be in those shoes to walk out again and again and again to discuss these sorts of shootings? No, I don't believe we should give up our Second Amendment rights. But if you can't empathize with how difficult that position must be, then you should take a look at the mirror yourself today. I wouldn't want to be Barack Obama having to walk out there once again and say, we've got 5 dead, 10 dead, 15 dead, whatever it may be. There's something wrong. It's not the gun laws of America. I mean, let's look at the facts. The community college there, Umpqua Community College, was a gun-free zone. The killer being there at all was a violation of law. The law did nothing to protect those students that died, now did it? But we do need a national examination here, because these incidents happen just about everywhere, it seems. If you have some courage, give me a call, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. Also on the program today will be Michigan State Senator Tom Casperson, who's considering running for the seat of Dan Benishek, who's leaving his congressional seat behind. We'll also have Ed Klein here, a big get, by the way. Author Ed Klein, who's written the new book, Unlikable, The Problem with Hillary. Ed Klein has written several books about the Clintons. He's not one of their favorites, I think it's fair to say. Plus, Ron Romney, the chairman of the Michigan Republican Party, and Tim Stout will be here. But, you know, we got to ask Ron Romney here, by the way, a little side note why she's here. Rumors swirling again around Mitt Romney. Why? Because Ann Romney said on a program here recently, in the last 48 hours, they're evaluating. Really? You're evaluating it again. Basically, his campaign slogan would be, I told you so. I told you so. And he might be the antitoxin for Donald Trump, they say. All right. Let's go to the hotline. Steve on the line in Lansing today. Steve, welcome to the program.
Good morning, sir. Yeah, that'd be a tough choice between Romney and Trump, but I tend to think that Trump would probably demand more respect around the world. It's called gunboat diplomacy. It's a term that came out of the Reagan administration. That would be slick stuff.
No, well, you know, Vladimir Putin's using gunboat. I said Vladimir Putin is using gunboat diplomacy right now pretty well, and now Iran has joined the fight in Syria, but I digress.
Yeah, I understand, and there's no winner there because neither one of them are our friends.
A fair point. Yeah.
The other thing, though, was this business of my God, I just went complete blank. I apologize.
It's okay. You're forgiven. Tell me this. What is your opinion on this gun thing? Tell me this. Your opinion on this shooting. What do we do? Where are we going wrong?
It seems to be, if you look at the patterns, it's the gun-free zones that's drawing the idiots. Well, and only until these people who are creating these gun-free zones pull their head out of whatever orifice it's up, it's going to continue. You know, when you get a pattern, it continues to go on. Larry the Cable Guy said it best: "You can't fix stupid." That's all I got.
I appreciate it, Steve. Thanks for checking in. The hotline number, 888-900-9966. Here's the deal. So committed to the gun-free zone at Umpqua Community College, which, by the way, is a hunting community, a fishing community, a rural community, like so many communities that you're already familiar with. But so committed to the gun-free zone were they that even the guards were unarmed. There was nobody there to protect these kids. And I've been over this before, but isn't it high time we put special resource officers on the campus of every school in America. Is it going to stop everything? No. But it might stop some, and it might slow down some others because we're a country of 325 million people. There are also millions of guns in this country, so you're not going to start by collecting the guns. That's not going to happen. Because honestly, my friends, when Barack Obama talks about, common sense gun laws, name one law, one, that would have changed what happened yesterday, or what happened in Charleston, South Carolina, or what happened to that news team in Virginia. Tell me one law that would change any of that. There is one law that would change that. Outright confiscation of your firearms. That's the one law that would change all of it. And they know that. You see, what the plan would be is they would make incremental changes to gun laws, and then there'd be another shooting. Oh, that didn't work. More incremental changes. Oh, that didn't work. So on and so forth. By the way, Australia confiscated all their guns. The private gun ownership in Australia has returned to where it was previous to that confiscation because they demanded the right to defend themselves, and guns have now repopulated in Australia. One of the places the president compared us to last night. 25 after on the Steve Gruber Show.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
Welcome back to the Steve Gruber Show. Free for all Friday. Your phone calls are welcome, of course. 888-900-9966. You can also find out more at stevegruber.com. You can click the Listen Live button right there. You can also, if you missed something and you want to go back and hear something from yesterday or a week ago or 3 months ago because your friend told you needed to go listen to it, you can do that. stevegruber.com. Click the podcasts. The way we set this up, we do whole hours of the program so you can hear what I'm talking about in my commentaries and so forth, and you can also select the guests individually. Selected guests individually. Our next guest here on the program, Rick Ector, National Rifle Association credentialed firearms trainer, who's been a guest on the show here several times now and one of my favorites. Rick, welcome back to the program.
Hey, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to speak with both you and to your listening audience.
Appreciate that. Now, obviously, these days like today are difficult for folks like yourself and myself because we empathize with victims of mass shootings. We're not callous. We are human beings. And at the same time, I don't believe that, taking your gun away, Rick, or me surrendering my gun is going to make the world a safer place.
Well, I was on a local broadcast TV news show here just last night. It's a reflexive instinct that anti-gun people have. A gun was used to commit a heinous crime, and it's almost, reflexive. Like when the doctor takes the little stone on a pole and he hits you on your knee with it, and your knee just flails out. Well, it's the same type of reaction. I actually refer to it as dancing in the blood of victims, but inevitably they do the same things. They call for more restrictions on gun ownership, and really what they're doing is they're seeking to punish the people who did not do it.
Well, that's my point. I mean, and here's my question, Rick, and it's a fair question. It's not rhetorical. What law would you put in place that would have prevented what happened yesterday? What law is it? Because there's only one thing that you could do that would have stopped what happened yesterday, and that's outright confiscation of all privately held firearms, period. There's little else you could do.
Well, even that would not work, because, the good people would not have guns, and that would actually create more victims, because more bad guys would be more so emboldened to do such crazy things. We need to look no further than the effects of the draconian gun laws that have been affecting Chicago, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Maryland. For many years, we've had similar gun laws here in the state of Michigan, which impacted us very greatly here in Detroit, Flint, and to some extent Pontiac. So,
well, and the president last night planting the false flag, and as I said at the top of the program here, and I'll repeat for your benefit as well, I empathize with the president for having to go out there again and having to go over this conversation of, 5 dead, 10 dead, 15 dead, whatever it is. He's done it many times. And I don't envy that position at all. And it has to be very difficult, gut-wrenching. in fact. But where he loses me is when he, strays into making comments like, we know that the states with the strictest gun control laws have the, less shootings like this and less violence, which could be, it's the farthest thing from the truth.
Yeah.
You know it. You saw him say it.
It's a bold lie, and I hate to call it for what it is, because that's what it is. I mean, we know Chicago is example A, and has been for several years. And, I'm with you. He loses me, definitely at that point. Certainly those of us who are law-abiding gun owners, CPO holders, firearm owners who carry guns every day, we empathize with the rest of the country. Our hearts hurt the same as he says his does. The thing is we just have a very different viewpoint as to what should be done in the aftermath. We know that more gun laws are not going to make us safer. Actually, the converse is true. We should have less gun laws. We should not have these gun-free zones where there are places where are literally killing fields of opportunity.
Well, how foolish is it?
College campuses and schools all over the country are completely, well, I'm not going to say completely vulnerable, but this one here in Oregon, it took law enforcement at least 10, 15 minutes to get there. I mean, what are they expected to do for that period of time?
Yeah, some reports said 20 minutes.
Crazy.
Yeah, some reports said as long as 20 minutes it took for police to arrive. Some students saying it took 20 minutes. Now, they might have thought it, but somehow 10, 15, 20, it doesn't matter. 5 minutes is too long. And here's the other incredibly foolish thing, Rick, that just makes me scratch my head. They were so dedicated to the gun-free zone mentality, they thought they were in England. The guards on campus didn't even have guns. They had little T-shirts that said security and a walkie-talkie. What are you gonna do? Throw that at the guy with the gun?
Yeah, really. Yeah, I agree with you. The thing though is that something does need to change. I think we need to address mental screening on some level. I mean, not just people who own guns and buy guns. I mean, across the board, if you're doing things like going on the internet and threatening to kill people, and in the same breath you're claiming that this is your only opportunity not to be significant, there needs to be some mechanism in place for people to at least look at you and come have a conversation with you and make sure, that you're okay. But as a civil libertarian, I really have a problem with, having each and every movement, evaluated and critiqued and violated from a privacy standpoint. But usually when these guys flip out and do something like that, they've done something before. And usually it's not a surprise to someone in a position of authority somewhere if they have not acted sooner. We just have to address how people do inane, crazy things and somehow escape scrutiny.
Yeah, I don't know what we do here, but clearly I think the one common denominator we have is mental health issues. I think that's fair to say, and I think you would agree with that.
Yeah, something we need to do something. But by the time someone reaches a level where they're ready to grab a firearm and start slaughtering, fellow, citizens, there's usually several events that, really when you look at them, in hindsight, they really stand out like, red flags that, hey, this guy, at least needs on some level to be screened or assessed to make sure, that he doesn't go through with it. At some point in time, when you look at what they said this guy did yesterday, some people might have described, they have thought it was satire, he was, being, exercising some dark humor, but apparently not.
Yeah, this is serious stuff.
And took out concrete actions to carry out his most heinous act. But,
you got it, Rick.
Yeah.
Rick, I appreciate it. I got to run, my friend, but always a pleasure having you here on the program. You're always welcome here, of course. Keep the faith, be steadfast, and, pay attention because a lot of strange things going on. Rick Ector, always a pleasure.
Thank you so very much for having me on the show.
There you have Rick Ector, everybody, National Rifle Association credentialed firearms trainer, legally armed in Detroit, his organization. He's also a firearms instructor in Detroit. because he got held up in his own driveway and told himself if he survived that incident, he would never be a victim again. He is not a victim. It's 41 after on the Steve Gruber Show.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
Hey, one, you got the blues. Guess you ain't got no one else to use.
Free for all Friday.
That road that leads nowhere.
Step up to the pay window. We've got something for you. It's the Steve Gruber Show, 888-900-9966. We're going to take a break from Oregon for a minute here and look at national politics for a second. Hillary Clinton's number is down in double digits in some recent polling now. Pretty incredible. Her number is just taking a pounding everywhere. Her number is taking a pounding everywhere. And meanwhile, she continues to point the finger. Here's the problem that people have with this. Adults, on occasion step up and say, I did something wrong here. They are accountable, but it just doesn't seem to be the case here. Always pointing the finger elsewhere. Here to sort that out a little bit for a few minutes, Phil Kerpen, president of American Commitment. Phil, welcome aboard.
Hey, good to be with you.
So, all right, the point of a column that you just wrote, and we see this all the time with this particular candidate. Hillary Clinton wants to, rationalize and point and shrug and shed off any blame she might have. And here we are now with Obamacare, health insurance premiums rising. I'm told that in 2016, we could see dramatic increases in cost and no dramatic increase in benefit. And she's saying that this wasn't my deal. What do you say?
Well, she's got a big problem because Obamacare really is her plan. The big difference between Hillary and Obama in 2008 was she wanted the individual mandate, and he said he was against it. And then he got in, he passed it. And basically, the Obamacare law is exactly the plan that she campaigned on in 2008. And so, she's really on the hook, I think, for all the problems with Obamacare. And in particular, these rising premiums and rising out-of-pocket costs, higher deductibles, co-pays, and so forth are a huge problem, not just for her, but for all the Democrats, because, they made the opposite promise. Obama said 1 million times that premiums are going to go down $2,500, and so they've got a huge problem. You're right, it's going to get much worse next year because some of the secret bailouts for insurance companies phase out that have been masking premium increases. We're going to see an even bigger jump next year. And so they've got on the merits, they really have a huge problem. And so they are looking for a scapegoat, and that's why we see them bashing the drug companies.
Yeah, so isn't it interesting that, and Big Pharma, make no mistake, government is deeply in bed with Big Pharma, but I guess it depends on how much pressure there is. When you put the rats in the corner, they all start biting each other, right?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. The pharmaceutical companies spent over $100 million on TV ads to help pass Obamacare, and so they were sort of a big part of this whole thing, although, not as much in bed with the administration and the Democrats as the insurance companies are.
Which is just
insurance companies
shameful.
are practically part of the government at this point. I mean, in personnel moving in and out, you're required to buy their products by law. So the subsidies flow directly to them. And I think that you're right. I mean, pharma was in the tent on this whole thing, but they've sort of been pushed out because, they need someone to blame. And
Big Pharma was in the tent. They were just serving refreshments, though. They weren't the main act.
Yeah, that's right.
So they were there for the little get-together. Phil Kerpen on the line, president of American Commitment. And you mentioned the insurance companies. The insurance companies, shameful behavior. They really are part of the government now. And can you imagine what your business would be like? What your business would be like if somebody mandated that somebody had to buy our product. If you got to buy this product from Phil Kerpen's company, that's it. That's the only, you have to. Good Lord, we'd be happy. Our shareholders be happy. We'd be in high cotton.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, not only are you required to buy their product by law, but hundreds of billions of dollars of tax money flow directly to them. And so, they get the subsidies and the mandate. I mean, this thing is, it's a real meal ticket for them, no question about that. And, they don't want Obamacare to be revisited. And that's why they've been pointing the finger at drug companies along with the Democrats and the government. But the problem with this theory that drug companies are the reason that plans are so expensive under Obamacare is it's not true. Out-of-pocket drug costs peaked in 2005. They've been declining for the past decade, and drug costs are only about 9% of medical costs in this country. So that's not the cost driver. It's just a scapegoat.
Yeah, but the other thing that you didn't mention, but just as a little bit of a detail on the insurance company, they also get, we get to make sure that we guarantee their profits. We guarantee that they make their level of income, because if they don't, the taxpayers are right there. And all of these things are coming back to Hillary Clinton. And the other very notable thing that happened this week, I think, the Teamsters Union declined to endorse Hillary Clinton because of this tax that's pending on the Cadillac health plans in part. And she said, no, we won't tax the Cadillac health plans. Again, pandering to the unions now to say, hey, we won't charge you like we charge the rest of America. Just make sure you vote for me. I mean, it's tawdry to me.
Well, yeah, look, I mean, the Cadillac tax is a huge problem for unions because, the union plan is one of the ways these guys make money, the union health plan. It's a very expensive health plan. A lot of that money gets diverted back to the unions, and so they get it negotiated into their contracts that people have to get that plan. With the Cadillac tax, companies are saying, well, we're not going to do that because we have to pay this 40% tax. Instead, we're just going to do basically a defined contribution. We'll say how much we're willing to pay towards health care, and we're going to let workers pick the plan they want. That's a disaster for unions. They lose one of their cash cows, and so they're saying to her, hey, you got to get rid of this tax, even though it's one of the centerpieces of the Obamacare law that you supported. And Hillary's saying, oh, yeah, no problem, I'll get rid of it because the union bosses don't like it. But, of course, she's going to replace it with a new tax on non-union workers. She just hasn't put the specifics out yet, but she's not going to just cut a tax and not replace it. She wouldn't do that.
Yeah, it's just troublesome. There you have it, Phil. I greatly appreciate your time. We'll keep an eye on all this and the comings and goings of Hillary's emails and all these things and how she points blame and assigns to other folks. Maybe it's Huma Abedin's fault. Maybe she'll be the next one to get blamed. Who knows? Phil, greatly appreciate your time, my friend.
All right, have a good one.
There you have Phil Kerpen, everybody, president of American Commitment. Not letting Hillary get away with this one. We're going to take a break, and then at the top of the hour, the publisher of the Roseburg Beacon newspaper in Roseburg, Oregon, David Jakes, will be joining us here on the program. A resident of Roseburg, Oregon, a gentleman that was on the scene during the attack on Umpqua Community College yesterday. He'll join us live at the top of hour number 2. Stick with us here on the Steve Gruber Show.